On December 4th, 2024, Maine State Police received a call of unknown origin from an adult male who reported that he was being held hostage in an abandoned sawmill along with 19 other people whom he did not know. He was unable to provide a precise location, only repeating that they were inside a warehouse and that the man holding them hostage kept growing and was forcing us to dance. The dispatcher noted screaming and loud, rhythmic dance music in the background, the volume of which interfered with her ability to fully understand the caller. The dispatcher asked whether the caller had a cell phone or a landline. He responded, "I don't have either one. I don't even know how we're talking. Just please help before he eats." A second voice interrupted at this time. The voice was much calmer, male, and according to the dispatcher, kind of jolly. The newcomer said, "Wrong number. Sorry. Don't mind him. We're just making sandwiches." The call cut out. Despite extensive efforts, the call remained untraceable. However, based on the details provided during the call and the dispatcher's extensive knowledge of the county, she provided a probable location, an abandoned sawmill in a specific tract of the North Woods in Aroostook County. 2 officers were dispatched from the barracks closest to the sawmill. Upon arrival, they found a scene of almost unimaginable carnage. The unmistakable odor of death enveloped them. Lights overhead flickered and strobed erratically, illuminating the horrific sight within. The floor was flooded with blood and tissue drying into dense matrices. The walls, ceiling, and equipment were splattered with what the officers described as human slurry, as well as recognizable biological matter, such as fingers, eyeballs, ears, and teeth. An immense ring of this same slurry dominated the center of the floor. Inside the ring stood an unusually tall man in smeared mime makeup and wearing nothing but a red trench coat. The man stood behind an old conveyor and appeared to be making sandwiches, utilizing a loaf of generic white bread and the slurry, which he scooped out of the ring with his bare hands. The officers immediately exited the building and radioed for backup. Upon hearing the details, however, their supervisor recognized what they were dealing with. He told them the call was a prank and the warehouse was a shooting location for a new film. He then instructed them to leave the scene immediately. Once assured of their departure, he called the MSP's assigned agency liaison, who immediately notified command at AHH NASQ. Due to the deeply appreciated efforts of T-Class Agent Christoph W., personnel were able to confirm the location of the warehouse and situate staff on site in a timely fashion. Upon entering the sawmill, agency personnel were treated to the same bloodbath as the state police. Blood spattered everywhere, blood flooding the floor, small recognizable pieces of bodies sticking to equipment, walls, and ceiling alike, and of course, the ring of pudding-like slurry surrounding the man in the center of the room. As staff watched, the man slathered a handful of the slurry between 2 pieces of bread and held it out, offering them a people butter and jelly sandwich. When personnel requested clarification, the man explained that the slurry material was people butter and jelly that he had made himself. When asked to provide further clarification, the man explained that he made his people butter and jelly by bringing 20 overripe people to the warehouse. When asked, he refused to elaborate how he transported these individuals to the warehouse, where they had come from, or even who they were, and made them hold hands, because holding hands makes everything better. He proceeded to explain that he had forced his victims to dance in a circle until they ground themselves down into people butter and jelly. I did speed the process along a little. It might affect the texture, but I had to do it to make sure the food would be ready by the time you arrived. After providing this explanation, the man approached the edge of the slurry circle with several sandwiches in hand and attempted to hand them out to various T-Class personnel. When staff refused to take the sandwiches, he threw sandwiches at the following personnel: T-Class Agent Michael W., T-Class Agent Nicole P., T-Class Agent Jennifer D., and T-Class Agent Rochelle B. He also made as if to throw one to T-Class Agent Christoph W., but appeared to change his mind, saying, "No, the company man has enough to eat. I can't in good conscience take food from the mouths of women for your sake. Maybe you can convince Michael to share, though. He doesn't eat, you know. He just drinks." What followed this conversation was the 43rd recapture of the most dangerous entity known to the Agency of Helping Hands, the Harlequin. For additional information on the history, appearance, and catastrophic concerns regarding this inmate, please review file number 17. Following the inmate's unsuccessful attempt to distribute sandwiches among the staff, Commander Raphael W. instructed T-Class Agent Rochelle B. to approach the Harlequin with a request for a field interview. The Harlequin asked if the interview included cameras and proceeded to express anxiety because his face was a mess. When assured that no cameras were present, he consented to an immediate interview on the condition that the interviewer enter the ring with him. Upon receiving this request, Commander Raphael W. entered into heated discussion with other assembled staff. After approximately 1 minute, the Harlequin warned, "This is a limited time offer. Take advantage now or be taken advantage of later." At this point, Commander Raphael W. personally escorted T-Class Agent Rochelle B. directly into the circle over the strenuous objections of other staff, instructing her to open the interview with questions regarding the events and motivations surrounding the people butter and jelly incident. Interview subject: the Harlequin classification, string uncooperative, indestructible, Olympic, protean, critical, egregore. Interviewer: Rochelle B. Interview date: 12/5/2024. It's better to eat than be eaten. But why are you asking about this? I mean it. Why? This isn't even the worst thing I've done today. Surely you know that. No, I don't think you do. After all this time, I think you still don't know anything about me except what I let you know. Anyway, I don't know what to tell you except yes. Yes, I did this all by myself. Why? Did you just ask me why? Because I can. Because I want you to know that I can. Because their very bones were so rich and so sour with suffering. Because the memory of their marrow will make my mouth water for years. Mostly I did it because I wanted to. I always want to. I only do things that I want to do. You only found me because I wanted you to find me. You only captured me because I wanted to be captured. You only contained me because I wanted you to contain me. You are only speaking to me because I want to speak to you. You are only making me talk because I want to know how it feels to be made to talk. Why do I want to talk to you? Because I miss your little face. Who wouldn't? And also because you made my son very, very sad when you ran away from him. He was only trying to tell you jokes. Don't ever run from a man trying to tell you jokes. Trust me on that. It wounds his pride forever, and men don't forget when you wound their pride. It makes for very awkward and unfortunate situations. I know this because I'm a man whose pride has been wounded too many times to count. My wife is the worst offender. She hates my children almost as much as I hate her. All of them, the children I already have and the ones who are still in the adoption process. I love talking about my children, my sour, rich, delicious children who will one day make the whole world bright. You know what? I love talking about them so much that I'm going to talk about them now. Once upon a time, I found my oldest son in a mass grave with soldiers laughing over the bleeding bodies. My son wanted to be a doctor, but I did not have the resources to send him to medical school. I only had the resources to teach him the most important lesson of all. It is better to eat than be eaten. Next, I found my oldest daughter in a frozen lake, deep in the darkest part of the deep, dark woods. Her first father drowned her. There wasn't enough food to feed her and her brother both, so he chose the boy and killed the daughter. When I pulled her out of the ice, her skin steamed under the morning sun. I took her back to her old father so she could tell him how very badly he had hurt her. Her old father and brother were not happy to see her. They were less happy when I made sure they, and they alone, fed her. She was least happy of all when I made her eat, until I taught her the most important lesson. It is better to eat than be eaten. Then came my littlest son, the one you ran away from and hurt so very, very badly. What a fine artist he is, a true visionary, and so intelligent. I did not even have to teach him the most important lesson. He learned on his own, in the most awful ways, that it is better to eat than be eaten. After him, I found my idiot son, the great disappointment. He tries, and I appreciate that. Really, I do, but there comes a point when every parent must admit that trying isn't enough. It's a shame because his voice is beautiful. Idiot or not, however, I must give credit where credit is due. And to my idiot son's credit, he has always understood that it is better to eat than be eaten. After him came my second daughter, my little lady, the apple of my eye. She ran away. She has a gentle heart. She doesn't like any of my rules, but even she understands that it is better to eat than be eaten. Then there was you. I hope this doesn't negatively impact your self-esteem, but I wasn't even sure you were mine. In fact, I hoped you weren't. A child I can't control isn't a child I entirely want. A child I can't even hurt is no fun at all. But a good man steps up when he must, and I am much more than a man. I am also much more than good. That doesn't change the fact that you're in trouble. You're wayward, and you're manipulative, and you're close-minded, and you're cruel to your brother, and you wound pride everywhere you go, and your taste in men makes me shudder. But that's how I knew you were mine. My taste in men makes me shudder, too. There are far worse things to do than shudder with a man who is to your taste. But a father shouldn't discuss these things with his daughter. I'm sorry. Let's leave shuddering men behind us and talk about how I train up my children. I train my children to perform. Performance is the one true art. It's the only thing that serves everyone in everything they do. Stage parents are controversial, I know, and with good reason. I myself have made errors in terms of how I pushed my old children. I won't go so far as to say I have regrets, but it is probably fair to say they did. One of them became my old child when he threw a tantrum about those movies. Of course, you don't know what movies I'm talking about. Let me explain. There was a film series not so long ago, or maybe very long ago, or maybe now is very long ago from it, I don't remember and I don't care, that I got rid of. The universe as a whole thrives on pain and art. These films were so thoroughly unexceptional as to be neither, and therefore did not deserve to be. None of my children are unexceptional, not even the idiot. Each of you is pain and art in equal measure. You all deserve to be. I know that none of you want to be, and I know that you especially don't want to be with me. But the not wanting only makes you all the more delicious, and it's better to eat than be eaten. I will teach you that whether you want to learn or not. I can already tell that you don't like to learn, but that's why I'm so looking forward to teaching you. Not all of my children are mine, and even fewer stay mine. My most recent acquisition, not you, you've been my daughter for 15 years, are you an idiot too? Was a complete failure, which was unfortunate because he required a troublesome amount of work. I crept into his little town and crawled through his window. His mother saw me on his baby monitor and interfered. She interfered to such an extent that I had no choice but to teach her that it is better to eat than be eaten. She was not rich, but she was sour. So sour that I took the entire town away, from the world, from memory, from existence, and gave it to my city bright. That made all the people in the town fearful and uncertain. I luxuriate in fear and uncertainty. Your fear and uncertainty is particularly luxurious. Not as luxurious as the city bright. Nothing is as luxurious as the city bright. Nothing is as glorious as our feast days when we prepare our victims for what must be done. But I haven't enjoyed a feast day in so long. This is because nothing interferes with feast days like hungry children. My kids really are such interferences. I guess I taught them too well that it is better to eat than be eaten. Now I have too many of them. 6. I have 6 kids. And I don't like it. They eat too much and treat me like shit. They only wear posh label clothes. If you give one hand, they bite off both. And all my friends, they have big cars, big mansions too, and smoke the fine cigars. They have deep pockets. I don't know why. I look in my purse and start to cry. I hate my life, and I hate you. I hate my wife and her boyfriend too. I hate to hate, and I hate that. I hate my life so very bad. I hate my kids. Never thought that I'd... As soon as I realized he was quoting a song, which took way longer than it should have after struggling to parse the wild verbal flood he'd been throwing my way, I tried to come up with a solution. This was the only thing I knew about the harlequin in the field. If he starts singing, that means he wants to kill you. If he finishes the first verse and chorus, you're dead. So how to keep him from finishing the chorus? Tackle him? No way. No chance. Sing along? Although I was willing to try that in theory, I didn't know what he was singing, so that was a dead end. Yell at him? No, he'd probably just knot me up into a human balloon animal for being a disrespectful daughter. Ask more questions to try and derail him? To force him to forget the song and talk some more? Unlikely to work, given the increasingly manic timbre of his recitation. With no other ideas, I kneeled down, grabbed a handful of people butter and jelly, and hurled it at him. Well, I tried to, but Christoph caught my elbow and tried to drag me out of the circle, which ruined my aim. Fortunately, my aim is so bad that his interference served as a corrective influence, the result of which was that glob of human slurry slamming straight into the Harlequin's mouth. He fell silent, blinking. For half a second, I prayed for him to choke to death. Then he closed his mouth and gulped it down. Much better. My blood sugar was getting low. Anyway, he held his arms out as if expecting handcuffs. I'll go quietly, but I have conditions. I managed to absorb his first condition. You will play Be My Lover by La Bouche on a continuous loop for exactly 7 hours, loudly enough to upset the other inmates, before my mind wandered. Well, disassociated might actually be the more accurate word. So the thing is, I used to be a cop. I was good at it, not least because it's easy to be good at it when you can make people tell you anything. But let's set that aside for now. There was this homeless kid who lived in the park by my apartment. Well, not really a kid. He was my age, although the way he spoke and behaved and just generally interacted with the world was exactly like a teenager. His life was going about as well as you'd expect the life of a homeless, unstable young man to be going. It wasn't his fault. I could sympathize. I know what it's like to have your life derailed by other people. What it's like when no one helps you. And I know how close I came to being exactly like him. I suppose that's why I was so intent on helping him, not that there was much I could do. What I did was very minor in the scheme of things. I bought him food a few times a week, made sure he had a sleeping bag and a winter coat, dropped water bottles off every day on my way to work. Little things accompanied by little prayers that he'd figure out how to be the help he needed. He left the park in mid-June one year and didn't come back. I was so worried that I got a little obsessive. I checked the park every day. I even left water for him just in case he came back. But every morning, the water bottles were still there, and he wasn't. A couple months later, on an oppressively hot August afternoon, I got a call for a dead body in a garage. The caller said it was a vagrant who'd snuck in and died overnight. It was the hottest day of the year, and that's saying something. That garage felt 20 times hotter than the outside temperatures. It was like walking into a crematory oven. Half a step in, and I slammed into smell so powerful that for half a second, it tricked my body into thinking it was a wall. Death smells sweet and foul and gassy and sticky no matter what. Time and heat don't just make the smell worse. They metastasize it until that smell invades and overtakes everything around it. By the time I reached the discolored, flayed feet poking out from the blood-stained carpet roll in the middle of the garage, that smell had invaded and overtaken me. It was not a vagrant who had died overnight. It was the boy from my park. He'd been held and tortured for weeks until his body couldn't take it anymore, then rolled up in a piss-stained roll of shitty burgundy carpet and left to rot. The killer was the caller's son. He admitted it on the spot. I arrested him, and her for that matter, because there was no way she hadn't known. There was just no way. I will never forget that man's bright, blank eyes or his wide, bland smile. I will never forget what he said to me. Stay safe from your monsters. I will never forget how it took everything I had not to try to beat him to death right there. But most of all, I will never forget the smell. I couldn't get rid of it. It was like a curse. I laundered the uniform I wore that day 8 times, but I could still smell death emanating between the threads. I dry cleaned it 3 times before I gave up and threw it away. I finally threw away the boots too. But the day I threw them out, I had a panic attack. It didn't matter that I'd thrown them out because I'd been wearing them for days already. The treads on those boots had stepped in the blood and mucus and decomposition oil leaking out from that rug. Those boots had tracked that puddle through my car and my apartment, leaving molecules of human grease all over my car and all throughout my apartment. I spent an entire weekend scrubbing my floors on my hands and knees until I had bruises on my legs, until my hands were cracked and bleeding from the bleach water. Even after all that, I could still smell death. Nothing helped. Not until I moved out. And even after I moved, it never really went away. Even now, I'll still catch a whiff of it out of nowhere. I could be at a park or a pool or the interview room or my quarters, just anywhere at all. And I'll taste that greasy, gassy, sweet corruption clinging to the roof of my mouth or the back of my throat. When that happens, I blink and I'm right back in that garage, gagging on the physical force of the stench as sweat soaks my uniform and the overwhelming heat threatens to crush me. When I walked into the sawmill, the stench that greeted me was the same stench from that garage. The only difference was the temperature. Instead of crushing heat, it was the kind of cold that collapses you in on yourself. As sick as it feels to say, I think reliving the memory and remembering that boy helped me stay calm. I was calm even when the commander ordered me into the circle. Even when the Harlequin started throwing his people butter and jelly sandwiches around. Even when other field agents were aghast and Christoph was losing his shit and trying to get between me and the commander. I just did not care. Sometimes there are things that mean so much, in both good ways and bad, that they make everything else feel meaningless. The afternoon in that garage is one of those things. So I stepped across the circle, taking care not to slip in the slurry that smelled so much like a man whose only crime was being failed by everyone around him, and made sure to meet the Harlequin's eyes. I always meet my interview subject's eyes. They don't always meet mine. But he did. He leaned down, smiling. "Can you tell me what you did here tonight and why you did it?" I asked. "It's better to eat than be eaten." I listened as best I could, struggling to keep up while my mind replayed something so awful even he couldn't outdo it. At least not tonight. Then he started reciting that song, and to make him stop, I threw a human snowball in his gullet. Somehow that worked, and just like that, he surrendered with conditions. Once the commander agreed to them, because what else was he going to do? The Harlequin pulled me close and swung an arm across my shoulder. He was so tall that he had to bend down to whisper in my ear. "Promise to keep me safe?" "From what?" He grimaced at the other field staff, all of whom were watching us. I wondered what they were thinking, then immediately realized I was glad I didn't know. "From your monsters. They scare me. They should scare you too." We got him back to the Pantheon, where he shuffled good-naturedly into his cell and immediately crawled under the massive leather cloak in the corner. Apparently, his recapture was cause for celebration, because everyone involved threw an impromptu party in the cafeteria. I tried to participate, partly to be a good sport, and partly to look as unsuspicious as possible, because unfortunately, I'm still under suspicion. But between the cacophony of voices and the smell of beer and the way Mikey and Christoph and an arrogant-looking field agent were loudly trying to drink each other under the table, and the bone-shaking music and the grating explosions of increasingly intoxicated laughter every time someone called Christoph the company man, I didn't last long. I couldn't take it. I couldn't take any of it. Least of all, the idea that we'd actually accomplished something. Because I already know we didn't accomplish a damn thing. All we did was exactly what the Harlequin wanted. And as far as I can tell, no one here cares. To be fair, not everything is bad. Some of the pressure is off me now because my interview with him yielded new information, specifically about the creepy feast days, the 6 children, and the wife he apparently hates. The commander's pretty happy about that, and only mildly suspicious about the Harlequin claiming me as his daughter, so my life's gotten a little easier. The problem is, that's only going to last until the Harlequin acts up again. Given how insanely obvious it is that he's plotting something, I don't think it will be long. I want to believe his reasons for returning to the Pantheon have nothing to do with me, but honestly, I feel so stupid for even thinking about trying to believe that.